What's up, Rangers and overall hockey fans? Thank you all so much for chiming in for the latest episode here at Rangers Review. Myself, Wardy, and also we got Statboy Steven, the usual crew here. And we'll be breaking down the past couple games for the New York Rangers. This is week 9 here on the channel or wherever you get your podcast, where we break down everything that transpired with the Rangers during that span. And the Rangers, weren't bad, but weren't great either, kind of in between depending on the game. Definitely a lot to get into here over the past 4 games, specifically for the Rangers. So we'll be highlighting everything there is to know on that front. We'll also be getting into the upcoming games for the Rangers after this recording, including a couple of games out in the West Coast against the Colorado Avalanche, and then also the Arizona. I was going to even say the Arizona Diamondbacks. I'm still stuck in baseball mode. Arizona doesn't even feel like that they have a hockey team. Let's be honest, with all the scandals and things that have been going on with them, that being in the Yotes. So we have a lot to get into as well. Also goaltending performances and a kind of big deal of a goaltender that looks like he will be eyeing a return very soon, potentially even tonight at the time of originally recording this. But first, I want to thank everyone so much for first chiming in. If you're watching this on the live stream, we'll be taking questions towards the end, as always, if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on replay on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, don't worry. We still have a lot that we'll be getting into in this one. So, Steven, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing okay. I'm a little bit worried about the news that players are in COVID protocol and there's talk about games being postponed. But I've been back for a week, finally adjusting back to Irish time, which is nice. And unfortunately, the Rangers haven't really had the results go their way. But hopefully, they can change that this week. It's been a reality check for the Rangers playing 2 playoff teams, and it shows that when the opponent is a better, more organized and structured team, that we tend to struggle. Especially the Nashville Predators game, the neutral zone trap that they played on the Rangers, they executed it perfectly, and the Rangers didn't have an answer for it. And against the Colorado Avalanche, it was literally not literally, but
yeah,
they basically did what their name suggests in the second period that game. We go into the first intermission 2-1 up, and then before you know it, you're down 5 goals. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we have a lot to get into because I think it's important to look at the reality check, and I think that's great for a club too. Because look, winning streaks are always fun. The Rangers could have went on 10+ games winning. By no means are you going to see this man right here complain. But at the same time, you also know that depending on how these losses transpire, it is a reality check, and normally benefits a club too. It seemed like the Rangers have been more positive than they have been negative so far through the first quarter of the season, right? And I also think it's important on how Gerard Gallant has approached this entire thing. I'm really appreciating his brutal honesty in the post-game pressers that we've seen, especially after the most recent game against the Nashville Predators, how he just said that, it's a man's game and, we didn't play it. He was just straight up. He didn't like anything about the game, felt the Rangers play too soft, too timid. But again, we'll be getting into that further when we break down each and every one of these games. But overall, the Rangers went 2-2 over the past 4 games. Neither of us had the prediction correct. I'm pretty sure I thought the Rangers would go 3-1, and I think you might have said 3-0-1. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, neither of us get the belt this week. It's going to just hang in the rafters. I mean, the only X factor could be the goals, actually.
I know. So, how many games was it?
The first game was Chicago, I think, because we were talking about Artemi's, getting the 500th point, which he did within, like 20 seconds into the Chicago game that we'll be getting into in a minute.
In that case, I predicted 14 goals, and you were very sly, and you predicted 13. Just went one below. And the Rangers scored 11 goals, so congratulations.
Thank you. I'll take the belt. Not the proud feeling, however. I might be a champion,
it's like
but
winning in a shootout. It's like winning in a shootout.
It is like winning in a shootout. It doesn't have that same feeling as a Ryan Lindgren last second goal being an appearance. That's a different feeling if you ask me. But enough chatter here. Let's get into the 4 games for the Rangers. So if you guys don't know what we normally do in the podcast, we break down each of these games as all you guys watch as well, I'm sure at home, or you may be in attendance. So we'll be breaking them down and then really wrapping up our initial thoughts on everything that transpired here during that span. Then looking at some key highlighted players, whether they were doing good or bad during that span. And of course, taking some questions towards the end with our viewers in the live stream here on YouTube. But yeah, the Rangers went to Chicago to start off their trip here. And yeah, it was a darn good game, might I add. This was a game that the Rangers absolutely on paper needed to win, and they did exactly that. And the biggest highlight going into this game was Artemi Panarin, obviously signed with the Chicago Blackhawks as an undrafted free agent, was a stud with them with Patrick Kane and in that offense right away in his rookie year, being a Calder winner and all these fun things. And then, the Brandon Saad trade happened, the Brandon Saad trade that they lost numerous times. We all know that tangent. I know you can gladly go down it. But here he is, Artemi. How fitting is it that the ability for him to get his 500th point in Chicago against the team where he got things started? All it took was like right around 20 seconds, right? It did not take long whatsoever with Panarin in this game. The Rangers got off to an early lead thanks to Jacob Trouba goal. Trouba, a lot of things to talk about Trouba too in regards to, oh my goodness, Gordy Howe hat-tricks back-to-back games. A lot with him, right? But Trouba gets his 5th of the season just around, very early in this game, I should say, a minute in, pardon me. And then Panarin gets the assist for his 500th point. They collect the puck. Rydstrom gets the assist. Then shortly after that, only right around 40 seconds later, Erik Gustafson, the journeyman of a defenseman over the past couple of years after starting out with the Chicago Blackhawks, bounced around a bit, didn't do great in Philly, Montreal, etc., went back to the Chicago Blackhawks where he's had his most success in his career, gets his first goal of the season. Of course, first goals and the Rangers go together like fine wine and cheese. And then Kirby Dach gets his 4th goal of the season, ending a long goal-scoring drought, his 4th of the year, that being assisted by DeBrincat and Strome. And the Rangers are down by a goal for the first time heading into the second period, if I'm not mistaken, giving up 2 first-period goals. I think this is the first game the Rangers had done that, if I'm not wrong here. But then we get in the second period, a couple minutes in, Artemi Panarin does what Panarin does best. He scores, awesome goal, and I'm pretty sure it was on the power play, yes, in the left dot. Gets a tough shot originally, trying to balance himself again in that left dot to get the shot off, assisted by Zibanejad and Kreider. Panarin's 8th of the year. It's a tied 2-2 game. Third period, Chris Kreider, the iconic tip and goal, that being on the power play, assisted by Fox. Fox just waits it out on the blue line right and then throws it out on net. It wasn't even a hard shot. It was really just a toss. And Kreider being alone, not having a man-on-man coverage with him, he makes no mistake, really screams up to the sky. The Rangers get the lead. His 17th of the year for Kreider, assisted by Fox's 21st point assist, I should say, of the year, and Panarin's 21st assist simultaneously. Then we get into Kevin Rooney, scores his 6th of the year, assisted by Fox, and Ryan Reeves, who's been playing so good for the Rangers. Fox's 22nd assist at that point, Reeves' 4th assist, Rooney's 6th goal of the year. It's a 4-2 Rangers lead in the third. Panarin adds insult to injury with his 2nd goal of the game, his 3rd point of the night. 4th point, I should actually say. Panarin, 9th goal of the year, assisted by Trouba, 7th of the year, and Zibanejad's 16th assist. And then Barclay Goodrow adds one more to make it 6-2 in this one. 4th of the year, assisted by Reeves' 2nd point of the night, 5th assist on the year, Rooney's 1st assist of the season. So, Steven, what's your initial take on this Rangers-Blackhawks game?
Well, Panarin going into the game needing 1 point to hit 500, and he puts up 4. That's impressive. But this game reminded me a lot of the game against the Bruins on Black Friday.
Yeah, I can see the similarities in that.
In both games, if you would have told me after the second period we were going to run away and have an easy victory, I think the Bruins game was 5-2 and this one was 6-2. Neither of those wins is something you would have expected watching this game in the second period. Yeah, they were better, but winning the game 6-2, of course, empty net goal helps, but still, winning the game 6-2, it's not what we expected watching the game. But, great for everyone involved. Panarin getting 4 points. How many points did Strome and Fox get? They get I think Fox got 3.
Fox got 2 or 3, all apples.
Yeah,
he got 2, looks like.
Let me see. Okay, so I have Fox, Kreider, Reeves, Rooney, Trouba, and Zibanejad all had 2 points. All had multi-point games. And then Goodrow and Strome with a single one. So Strome only had 1 point. But most impressive for me, actually, and we'll get into that in the next game you'll be recapping. Alexander Georgiev.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, let's hold that off because you'll be taking away for the
Yeah,
second game of discussion here. But to really wrap things up on this first game, as many you know, Rangers actually outshot the Blackhawks 30-26, lost in the faceoff dot 56-44 like they normally do, but executed when it mattered most on special teams, 2 for 2 on the power play, and had themselves 39 hits to 29 for the Blackhawks, 10 more hits than the Blackhawks, and then blocks 16-10 in the Rangers' favor and equal giveaways at 11 apiece. But really a big highlight in this game also was the start of the Jacob Trouba tear. And this is something where talk about just, innocent. Jacob Trouba has always had an edge to his game, but as he said himself, he's not one that tries to take it to the next level. And I know that there was a lot of controversy that went on with his hit on Jujhar Khaira, but let's face the facts. This was still a rather clean hit. And same can be said for the next game. We had a big hit on Nathan McKinnon that you'll be getting into in a minute. So if you guys aren't aware or say have forgotten already, Trouba going after Jujhar Khaira in his own zone, bringing up the puck, had his head down slightly, and it was just a massive hit, a clean hit though. Khaira had his chin down, head down a little bit, got caught, and it was an unbelievably scary scene. I'm so happy that Khaira is fine. Since then, he was taken on a stretcher, was hospitalized, but he came back out of the hospital the next day, was okay. But yeah, just a massive blow, a clean hit from everything that we saw, but a massive one. And then Trouba, of course, had paid the price of getting in a fight soon after, got himself a Gordie Howe hat trick, and it wouldn't be the first time that he would do that with the Rangers this season, as he would do again, within the next game or so. So yeah, any kind of initial reaction to that hit, Steven? And overall, what would come of Trouba's play in the following game that you'll be breaking down for us?
Yeah, I think people need to understand that if a hit results in an injury, it's not automatically a bad hit. The same way, the other way works the same. If a player doesn't get injured in a play, doesn't mean it's not a dirty play.
Mm-hmm.
And PK Subban knows everything about that.
Yes.
But Jacob Trouba, 2 good hits, unfortunate results with Jujhar Khaira, but he's conscious. He's hopefully going to make a full recovery. It's just unfortunate,
Yeah, no, it was scary. I mean, I was freaked out when it happened. Everyone was.
And I want to say something that people might disagree with here, but
okay,
I think retaliation for a clean hit should be a penalty.
It's bullshit.
You should get and by the way, what happened to the instigator penalty? Does that still exist? Because
I mean, it did happen. It did happen.
No, because in the next
not in this game, but it did happen in the Avs game.
Nope.
I'm almost certain it did. Thought we talked to
Landeskog got an unsportsmanlike conduct, not an instigator penalty.
Oh, okay.
But instigator penalties are rarely given these days. I don't know what it is. I don't know the reason behind it, but in my opinion, retaliation for a clean hit should be a penalty. Fighting in retaliation for a clean hit should be a game misconduct, because there's no excuse for it. You need to let the game be the game. And yes, I like free flowing hockey, and I like nice plays, but if you're going to allow people to retaliate for clean hits, then you're taking hitting out of the game, and I don't think that's something anyone wants.
No, and I agree. And look, there's always going to be scenarios like the Trubas of the role that, when you're 6'4", 6'5", big bodied, and you're going full speed at a guy with puck in possession, odds are he's still going to, really knock his socks off. And unfortunately for Khaira, he got himself injured here, which again was horrifying. I never wish that on anyone. I'm so happy that it looks like that he's going to be okay. Wishing him nothing but the best. But the point that you're making as well is, what does this do for a game of hockey that's so known for having clean hits? If you take clean hits out of hockey, then you have nothing. You have a league where it makes me think of, was it the CHL in the beginning of the pandemic where they imposed, a type of hockey where players simply couldn't check each other? It was something along those lines. I know it was for different reasons.
I think the OHL had that 2 years ago.
Okay, yeah, it was one of the juniors teams, leagues that they proposed, and it was just outrageous. Like the reasons were different, but still it was outrageous in that own right. And the same will be said here, because I think that you can justify, and I will say this, I wouldn't compare necessarily the Chicago incident to the Avalanche incident for the sole purpose on who got hit. And I know that that sounds wrong, but at the end of the day, when you have someone like a Jujhar Khaira getting knocked down versus, say, someone like a Nathan McKinnon, who's not just your best player on your team, but one of the top players in the league, this is the Wayne Gretzky type feel. There's a reason why these guys are normally protected. So I can understand the justification far more when it's, say, your leader on your club, your go-to guy, that guy that you need him in the lineup because he's an X factor every given night, the Connor McDavids of the world, right? You can't ever see a scenario where Connor McDavid gets knocked on his ass and maybe gets a little roughed up, maybe has a scratch on his face like McKinnon, and for there to be no retaliation. Even if we don't agree with it, that's something that I feel is more justifiable because that's always been the case in hockey for star players. And I agree, it's not necessarily right for the lesser players that get hurt into the same situation they are defended. But my point is that while I agree with you wholeheartedly that, there should be some type of penalty if you're going to, reply from a big hit that was clean. At the same time, however, I can understand the mindset from a Gabriel Landeskog, the captain of your team, to see your number one player on your team and McKinnon get laid out and trying to, retaliate in one way. Like that, I can understand, even if I don't necessarily agree with it.
Yeah, I still think it should be penalized because if you don't, you're punishing. Like I said, you're punishing players for dishing out clean hits. But yeah, moving on to the next game, Rangers have a very short rest after the game in Chicago. If I remember correctly, they got back to New York at 3 a.m.
Yeah, they got home very early in the morning.
Following day, or basically, like what it was, like 15 hours later. Then they, something like that. They play the Colorado Avalanche at home, and one of the issues I have with this, and I've brought this up in the past, there should be at least 24 hours between puck drops.
Exactly. It ticked me off when I saw how they had a 8:30 start in Chicago, right? To then a 7 p.m. start the following day.
Back-to-backs, I'm all for, but you cannot have game one of a back-to-back at 8:30 and then game two of a back-to-back at 7 the next day, which includes traveling back home. That's just, it doesn't make sense.
I agree.
But yeah, the Rangers go up against the Colorado Avalanche, one of the best teams they've faced so far this season, even though they've had their issues. But, offensively, they are one of the best teams in the league. Defensively, they might not be there, but offensively, when we have Rantanen, McKinnon, Landeskog, even Nikushkin, and Nazem Kadri chipping in, Cale Makar, who I think leads all defensemen in goals, Devon Taves, who's playing really well this season.
Yeah,
it's a tough team to play, and they were not on the tail end of a back-to-back. We were. So yeah, we go into that game, concede the first goal after 4 minutes. Trouba ties it up. Trouba, who has a bunch of goals in the last 5 games, pretty impressive for him. And then near the end of the period, we get what for me has been the moment of the season so far, Nils Lundqvist's first NHL goal.
Can we take a moment to, if there's one highlight to take away from this game, it is quite literally Steven, the unofficial uncle of Nils Lundqvist, getting to experience his first NHL goal. And I was so happy that it was a stereotypical Nils goal that you would think of with Sweden on the power play, the left dot, everything about it was picture perfect. So happy to see that.
He did exactly what I've been showing everyone for the last 3-4 years.
Yep.
And he tripped while celebrating, and my fiance thought she was funny, so she sent me a gif of Elias Anderson tripping over a cable, and Nils Lundqvist.
I was at that game,
falling while celebrating his first NHL goal, and then asking me who did it better. So yeah,
these damn Swedes just can't keep themselves together. Let me tell you.
But no, I mean, great moment for him. Power play goal, second unit coming up again with a goal. They had a power play goal against the Philadelphia Flyers a week prior, and they do it again. And this is what the Rangers need. They need their second unit to put the puck in the net as well. And that's what's happening. And it's amazing what the second unit can do when they get more than 10 seconds, right?
Yep.
I'm just elephant in the room. I'm just going to say it. And then after the first period, I should have gone to bed because that was it. I should have just turned off my laptop. I should have gone to bed, and I should
I
have just gone to bed.
I should have stopped watching once it was, I want to say, it when it was 5-2, 4-2
Mhm.
even. I mean, that Alex Newhook goal, but I'll let
Yeah,
you run with it.
4-2. Second period, the Rangers not off to a good start. They can see 3 goals in 10 minutes. Nathan McKinnon, Nazem Kadri, and Alex Newhook putting the puck in the net for them. And that's when history is made for the Rangers. Jacob
I blame
Trouba,
this on you.
you blame it on me. Well, what did I do?
This is separate. I'm sorry to cut you off,
Okay.
but I'm almost certain you tweeted out prior to this happened. You were the jinx of all jinxes. You said the last time the Rangers ended a 7-game winning streak, they lost a game where they gave up 7 goals. And I'm almost certain it was the Florida Panthers, right?
No, San Jose Sharks.
San Jose Sharks. But you schmuck, you spoke it to existence. For the man who says, oh, jinxes don't exist. Yes, I'm sure. Continue, Steven.
Anyway, Jacob Trouba hits Nathan McKinnon. McKinnon has his head down, doesn't see it coming. McKinnon goes down. And then because Trouba had a goal and an assist already, so you know what this means. You know where this is going.
Yes.
Landeskog drops the gloves. Trouba drops the gloves. And with that, history. Because with that fight, Jacob Trouba became only the second player in NHL history to have a Gordie Howe hat trick in consecutive games in consecutive days.
It's pretty cool.
The only other player was Doug Risebrough in 1983, I think.
Oh, wow.
I looked it up during the game. In total, there have only been, including Jacob Trouba, there have only been 5 players now with back-to-back games with the Gordie Howe hat trick in NHL history, league-wide since 1917.
Do you know who the other 3 were?
Yeah, so Jacob Trouba, of course. Then we have Stephen Leach in March 1992 for the Boston Bruins.
Okay.
Brad Maxwell for the Minnesota North Stars in November 1983. Doug Risebrough, February 1975 for the Montreal Canadiens. And the first player to ever have back-to-back games with a Gordie Howe hat trick was Phil Esposito in February 73 for the Bruins.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
I'm pretty sure he didn't win either of those fights. But, he's on that list. So, yeah, like I said, history was made. Trouba tried to wake up his team, and it was a good call. I mean, something had to happen. It didn't work. Logan O'Connor puts 2 in the net in the span of 22 seconds at the end of the second period. And we go into the third period down 6-2. And it didn't look good. Philip Hedl, after 9 minutes, gets a goal assisted by Lafreniere and Miller. But Rantanen with the final goal making it 7-3. And the Rangers ended their 7-game winning streak. And even if they would have won that game, it would have only been, I think, the 7th time in franchise history they'd had an 8-game winning streak. So it goes to show you how rare that streak already is for this organization.
And how difficult it is to get there. Let's not
understate how difficult
that.
it is. Winning 7 games in a row is pretty impressive.
Absolutely.
But, they fall to the Colorado Avalanche. As it's a combination of factors. It's traveling back after a late game.
It's Adam Huska having his NHL debut, who gave up
some
top goals early.
Talk about that. Adam Huska, the kid gives up 7 goals, becomes only the second goalie in Rangers history to give up 7 or more goals in his NHL debut. But I mean, I don't blame the kid. First period he made 18 saves on 19 shots. He was in the game. And then the second period, the team in front of him just collapsed. And some goals he probably should have had, but we're talking about a kid that plays his first NHL game, and he plays his first NHL game against a team that has maybe not the best line in the world, but probably a top 3 line in the world.
I mean, they just have so many studs. The only issue for the Avs in recent years has truly been their health.
Yeah, I'd say the Boston Bruins top line is the best line in the world. Maybe whatever line McDavid and Draisaitl are on together, the second. And then Landeskog, McKinnon, and Rantanen are probably the third best line in the world. So going up against that line in your NHL debut, it's tough. But gave up 7 goals. He was not the reason we lost, though. And all winning streaks come to an end. The most important thing is that you bounce back after such a loss. And did they?
Yes, they did. And I will say before we get there, I just want to share my final stances on this game. It's 2 things. One, it's the statistics, because the Rangers only lost this game because they won in the faceoff dot. Let's keep that in mind. The Rangers were 51% in favor to the Avs. So
yeah, I mean,
of course,
win the faceoffs or win the game. You have to pick one.
Clearly, I mean, I don't know what made them think, okay, try and continue the winning streak. Let's start winning faceoffs now. But they did. Didn't benefit them. Outshot 39-30. Power plays 1 for 5 apiece. Penalty minutes doesn't even matter. Hits 20-16 in favor of the Rangers. Blocks 19-11 in favor of the Rangers because a lot more shots were happening from Colorado. Giveaways in Colorado's favor 7-5. But not just that, but something also. I'm glad that you made a good point about Huska and the team in front of him. Normally, when we've seen inexperienced backups in recent years for the Rangers, they just flip a switch, especially in Hank's last couple of years with the Rangers. And for a while, they didn't do anything to help the man out. A lot of times, the Rangers in front of them did not do a great job on helping Hank. So naturally, when you would see, say, Hank, and then you'd have maybe a Mackenzie Skapski or just some random, a guy that maybe you don't know too well that comes in for his first debut, the Rangers just play on another level defensively because they want to make sure that he has the best possible NHL debut. It's been notorious with the Rangers in recent years. So to see them not really help out Huska in any way here was, disingenuous. Wasn't happy about that. And again, a lot of factors go into it. But that was something that personally bothered me a bit. I know that Huska gave up some very soft goals early on, especially in the 5-hole. I wasn't necessarily sure what was happening there. But overall, the Rangers defense was unbelievably sloppy. In the second half in the neutral zone, a lot of things weren't going their way. So that was just kind of my final take. I would have liked to see the Rangers try to shore up things defensively better for him more than anything, even if it wasn't a losing fashion. It just felt like, everything was against Huska in this one.
Yeah, not much else you could have done.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But getting on to the talking about a game to bounce back, wasn't necessarily a pretty game. It wasn't a game where you would get a blowout or anything, but still a game where the Rangers got to win. And they still need a win at the end of the day to bounce back after giving up 7 to Colorado. And they do just that. They head to Buffalo and they get themselves scored rather early within 5 minutes. Mika Zibanejad finally gets himself power play goal. Oh my goodness. Talk about a guy that's been snake bitten to start the season in the goal scoring category. Mika's been playing a very solid 2-way game. He's been gaining those assists, but still hasn't had that goal scoring, that spice that you would hope from him to start the year, as the same thing can be said with him starting the pandemic shortened season earlier this year. But still, Mika, 5th goal of the year, assisted by Panarin, his 23rd assist, and Fox's 23rd assist apiece. Then we get on to the second period in this one. Alexis Lafreniere and Buffalo. Boy, oh boy, is that always a match made in heaven. This is awfully similar. Alexis Lafreniere, 2-on-1, gets a nice goal. Did the same thing when he was in Buffalo last season when he scored the OT winner. And was that Laffy's first goal of his career in Buffalo?
Yes.
Yes.
What's even more interesting, though, it's the exact same spot in the world. Exact same. It was in Buffalo. The exact same side of the ice. The exact same spot on the ice.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
I'm gonna
look
this up in the coming days, and I might send a tweet about it. I'm going to look up how many of Lafreniere's career NHL goals have been scored from that position, between the crease and the left face-off circle.
Probably the majority.
Because I have a feeling it's definitely over 50%, maybe even close to 75.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's where he scores. I feel like that's where he scores like 75% of his goals. Like I said.
Yeah, normally it's a 2-on-1, something along those lines.
I'm gonna look this up. I'm gonna look into it, and interesting. That'll be interesting to dive into.
That will be interesting to dive into. I'm looking forward to finding out the details on that one. But
and then of course Patrick Nemeth, who owes Rasmus Dahlin a steak dinner.
Yes, he does. Here, expand on that a little bit further for us.
So we're up 2-0, and Sabres pull their goalie, and then they score. it's not the, what do you call it where you're down 2 goals and you score? Is it like the it's not the game tying goal? What would you call it?
I would just call it a momentum shifter.
There's a Dutch word for it. I don't know if there's an English word for it.
Okay.
Anyway, they make it 2-1. I don't think they had the goalie pulled yet, but they make it 2-1. Brett Murray, and then they pull their goalie trying to tie it up, and they do.
Oh my goodness.
They enter the zone, and the best way to score against this Rangers team is to bounce it off of Patrick Nemeth, and good things happen, and it happened here as well. They tie it up 2-2. They review it. There was no goaltender interference. There was no kicking motion, nothing. And then they review the zone entry. And it turns out that Rasmus Dahlin did not get back to the blue line on time before the puck entered the zone. There was some confusion afterwards because the NHL apparently put out a statement that they were wrong, but there was no conclusive evidence because was it Victor Olofsson who carried the puck in?
I think so.
Yeah, Victor Olofsson carried the puck in, but because his stick didn't touch the puck, technically it could be considered a delayed offside. But then there's also people who think that just because the stick doesn't touch the puck doesn't mean the player doesn't have control. And when you enter the zone and you control the puck, that's the defining factor here. So a lot of confusion, but the Rangers get away with one, and boy, did they need it. After that last game against Colorado, they needed this win, and they get it. Georgiev, 36 saves on 37 shots. Georgiev has been fine since Shesterkin went down. And before I go into the Nashville game, I do want to say this. Georgiev reminds me a lot of Henrik Lundqvist. And what I mean by that is he is a goalie that tends to play better if he is just playing game after game. Some goalies are the perfect backups. Some goalies can just go out on the ice when called upon and save your ass. But Georgiev, not unlike Lundqvist, they need that momentum. They need to have, that rhythm.
They need to be in a flow of things.
Yeah, they need to be in a flow. And Georgiev has shown that in the last couple of games. It's pretty crazy that we get this performance off of him after, for the last 2 years, to be perfectly honest, he was terrible. But good for him, good bounce back, and maybe it'll help a little bit with his confidence. But we get that win in Buffalo, and then the game against the Nashville Predators. When was it? Was it Sunday?
Before you get there, I just did want to mention that the Rangers. Look, everything was against them. They were not supposed to win that Buffalo game. That goal was supposed to be tied. They would have lost in overtime because they won the faceoff dot, 53% of 47. Things were not in their favor here. So for them to have the call, thankfully go their way in the end was nothing short of beyond lucky. Because again, faceoff wins do not equal success for this team. And again, they were 1 for 2 on the power play as well, which is always great to see.
Yeah, and then the game against Nashville on Sunday, I'm still a little bit hazy on the days of the week since I got back, but it'll get better. Sunday, they play the Nashville Predators at the Garden. And just I don't want to say a bad game by the Rangers, but not a good game either. The Nashville Predators knew exactly how to play against this team. They had us all figured out. The neutral zone trap worked to perfection. And this is the time of the year where you usually see teams having enough evidence, having enough video footage to really pinpoint a team's weakness. The first couple of weeks, every team is new. There's free agent signings, there's trade acquisitions, there's draft picks that make their debut. Teams are unpredictable in October and November. But once you get to the 1st of December, you have enough material to study in your pregame meetings to figure out how to best beat the team you're going up against. And the Nashville Predators, boy, they prepared for this one. and the Rangers were struggling to enter the zone. And every time we were trying to enter the zone, it looked like the ice was smaller on their end as
Yeah,
it
it
was on
did. It
our end.
really did.
Because when they were trying to enter our zone, it was like Moses,
It was
like
it was
parting
Jekyll and
parting
Hyde
the sea.
differences between these two teams.
It's amazing, and I know it's not really a different eye size, but it feels that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Rangers first period they hang in there. Second period they concede a goal. Philip Tomasino.
Who got his
Uh,
first goal of his career against the Rangers earlier this year.
exactly, and by scoring in this game, he became the first player of a Western Conference team to score in 2 games in his rookie season against the Rangers since Artemi Panarin in 2015. So
Wow. Interesting
anything
stat.
to mention Artemi Panarin, even if he isn't scoring.
I mean, let's not forget Panarin. I wanted that man so much to be a Ranger because all he did was light us up when he was in
Yeah,
Chicago and then Columbus, especially
yeah.
at MSG. He always had
Well,
that, oomph to him against us.
there are certain players that are just that they just play better against us. Tim Howard, wait, was it Tim Howard? No, Tim Howard is the football goalie. Jimmy
Yeah.
Howard.
Yes.
Sorry,
I'll
I got
always
my
talk about Jimmy.
I got my goalies mixed up. Jimmy
It's okay.
Howard always played better against the Rangers.
Yep.
You know who was a Rangers killer? Drew Stafford. Oh my
Yes, he
God, I
was.
hated it. I
Oh my
hated
God.
that guy.
Even when he was with the Devils, it felt like
Yeah,
it.
Adam Henrique. Oh,
Oh my goodness.
maybe it was the Henrique chance that fired him up when he played against the Rangers. I don't know, but there had to be something there.
Please, that was my first big memory and big heartbreak as a Rangers
Yeah,
fan.
but Philip Tomasino scores, gives the Nashville Predators a lead at the Garden, and they pull through in the end. They win again at the Garden. This was, I think, their third consecutive win at the Garden. Rangers have not beaten the Predators in New York since 2017. Um, so yeah,
And I was at that game, by the way.
it's
It was the
interesting.
home opener.
The
David
weird
Quinn's
thing is,
first game as coach.
the weird thing is when the Rangers play in Nashville, they win. Because I
Yeah.
was at the Ranger game in Nashville in 2019, the Hockey Fights Cancer game,
Yeah.
where Hedl scored the game winner, and then this season Lafreniere scores the game winner for us. So it's like opposite day when these two teams play each other. But what was really telling for me is what I highlighted last week. The Rangers are now getting a really tough schedule. We've had our easy wins, and if you look at the schedule over the last couple of weeks, yes, we had 7 wins in a row, and we had 11 wins out of the last 12. But if you look at the opponents, the Florida Panthers, good team, but then you have the Columbus Blue Jackets, New Jersey Devils, Montreal Canadiens, Buffalo Sabres, New York Islanders, Boston Bruins. Okay, Boston Bruins are not the team they used to be. Flyers, Sharks, Blackhawks, and then Colorado Avalanche. You lose 7-3 for other reasons as well, of course, as we've been through. But then you go up against Nashville, but now it gets really tough because the Rangers have not played that well against playoff teams. And in the next 3 weeks, they play the Vegas Golden Knights, among other games, of course. The Vegas Golden Knights, Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning twice, Edmonton Oilers, and then Vegas Golden Knights again. And in that stretch, there are games against the Montreal Canadiens and Detroit Red Wings. So there are 2 games that we should be able to win. But when you go up against these good teams, that's when you really know what you have. And I always say, if you want to be a contender in the playoffs, you need to be over 500 against playoff teams.
I agree.
Beating teams like the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens and the New Jersey Devils and this season the New York Islanders, because they've been terrible, those are wins that, yes, you need them. But I'm not going to get my hopes up because we beat a team whose biggest goal is a top 3 pick in the draft. If you want to make some noise in the playoffs, you need to have a good record against the teams that also get there. The Rangers right now, they're not terrible. They're 4-6-1 against teams in a playoff spot. So they're basically one win away from 500. If they win one of those games they lost, they're at 500. But preferably, I'd like for them to be at 500 or maybe a game or 2 above 500 against playoff teams, because those teams know what it takes to beat you usually.
Absolutely.
Because they score a goal and then they shut it down. And And that's going to be really telling. And yeah, we won a lot of games, but I mean, there's a lot of goals against too. There's 4-3 against the Panthers, 5-3 against the
Just
Blue
because
Jays.
we won a lot of games doesn't mean that they've always been pretty.
No,
That's a
and
big thing to take into
yeah,
consideration.
4-3 shootout win against the Devils, 5-4 against the Sabres. I was at that game. Boy, that was ugly. So yeah, we're winning, but we're conceding a lot of goals in the process, and that's something that we really need to shore up. And part of that is on the defense, but part of that is also on the offense, because defense is something you do as a team. The 5 people in front of the goalie have to play defense. It's not just the 2 guys at the back. Of course, they're playing the Colorado Avalanche tonight in Colorado. They're a little bit more rested than they were last week. The Colorado Avalanche are without a couple of players. I think Kadri is out and Devon Tage is out. So if we're ever going to beat them, this is probably the time. So we'll see what happens. And then tomorrow, back-to-backs again, but Arizona Coyotes. Both games are 9 p.m. Eastern, so at least there's a 24-hour window between both puck drops. That's a good sign. But we'll see how the Rangers recover from this. And this is where Gerard Gallant really needs to step up. We've seen how he does in the early stages of the season. Great. But now he needs to show that he is a great coach, not a good coach.
Let's see how he can be, adaptive, right, to adversity.
Exactly. As a coach, you need to be able to adapt. And yes, he does it mid-game sometimes, but
he did last game a little bit.
You need to understand as a coach also how to start against a team. Under David Quinn, I always felt that we were chasing teams. Maybe not scoring-wise, but we were always adjusting on the fly. And the moment we adjusted, the opposing coach pulled another rabbit out of his hat, and we were chasing it again.
Those effing rabbit ears, to quote the legend himself, David Quinn.
Yeah, let's not get into that.
Here, let's get into something important though before we get into these games, because I do actually want to, after we do our Q&A, I do want to highlight quite a little bit about the schedule upcoming for the next week or so. But let's talk for a second about goaltending and Alexander Georgiev. As you said, strong stretch for him during this time, and yeah, I mean, look, Georgiev is a guy that, man, oh man, we have really went back and forth on quite a bit since starting our, Rangers review. He's had his stretches where he's looked hot. He's had his stretches, including, a good portion to start this year where Gallant by no means could trust him, and rightfully so. Just inconsistencies, a drastic difference between his performance with the same team in front of him versus someone like Igor Shesterkin. Like, they're drastically different, right? But to see him kind of step up when the Rangers needed it most, the only thing I can really say is it's just damn unfortunate that the Rangers weren't able to put out more of a fight offensively in some of these games that you would hope for, or some more defensive structure. Like, man, oh man, it would have been nice to see if the Rangers could at least go 3-1 over these past 4. But hey, Georgiev has been a big factor for them over the stretch. And this was really, I would say, to a certain extent, not just in the eyes of a fan, but to even front office with Drury and others, like, on how you view Georgiev's future, at least for the remainder of this year. Like, if his performance here really tells you that, yeah, the Rangers can hopefully bank on him when they need him in times that you say Igor is down or he needs to get rest, all we can really hope for is that we get this kind of consistency out of Georgiev when the Rangers need it for those off days, when they need it for, say, Igor maybe he's a little shaken up or something. Not that I wish it on him, knocking on wood, right? But you're right. He does have those similarities to Hank in the sense of he gets on a roll the more he plays. Normally, that's the case with a lot of players, right? They're in a bit of a funk. It's hard to get out of that funk if, say, you're only playing every handful of games a month, right? Like, you need to get yourself some consistency, and he's in a role where he's not going to get that. So just like how we're talking about with Gallant, it's important to see how he can be adaptive. That same thing can be said with players, including Georgiev. I really hope we see more out of that, but I'm very impressed with him during this stretch. It was a pleasant surprise that I hope we see more out of for him for the remainder of the season and so forth, however long he's a Ranger, right? But what's kind of your final takes on Georgiev and a rather impressive performance that we saw over this span with not having any other options with Igor Shesterkin being out on the IR?
Yeah. I mean, look, since Shesterkin went out against the Sharks, that was on Friday. Georgiev came in. He's played 5 games, which in that stretch is the most. He's tied with Thatcher Demko for most games played by a goalie since that day. And his save percentage is .951.
Yep.
The only players that have a higher save percentage since December 3rd than Georgiev are Jonathan Quick and Anthony Stollards, and they only played 3 games each. So Georgiev playing in 5 games the moment Shesterkin went down, getting 3 wins because he didn't get the win against San Jose, because for goalies the win or loss is determined on who was in net when the game-winning goal was scored. So Shesterkin still got that win, but Shesterkin went down, and Georgiev 3-1 in the 4 games he started. 947 save percentage in the 4 full games. It just goes to show you that he's really on his game right now. The question is, and the question was already answered by Gallant, do you activate Shesterkin to play against Colorado, or do you go with the hot-handed Georgiev and let Shesterkin rest up a bit? Because a groin injury again is not something you want to rush coming back from.
And it's not the first time he's had this either.
It's also not the first time he's had a groin injury. That's also true. Going with Georgiev tonight. Of course, Kincaid was called up because the reason Huska was on the team in the first place a week ago is because Kincaid was on the COVID protocol list. The moment Kincaid cleared, he was called up, and Huska went down.
Now, and rocking those beautiful Mike Richter-esque pads that I had.
Oh yes,
love that.
There was a tweet today of John Van Beesbroek saying that if the NHL players don't go to the Olympics, then they will use players in the AHL, NCAA, and in Europe.
Let's get Kincaid in there, baby.
Can you imagine Kincaid in the Olympics with his Mike Richter pads? How cool that would be.
That would be so. And that's actually a great shout out to my good friend Dennis, as I've been telling you about. He's been working on a logo for us as we speak. He did Richter's mask design when he played for Team USA. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. But Kincaid called up. Quick note on Kincaid's situation regarding waivers. Since he's considered an emergency call up, he does not require waivers when we send him down again.
Which is good.
So emergency call-ups is when a team has fewer than 8 forwards, 3 defensemen, or 2 goalies. So if your goalie goes down, you can call up a goalie from the AHL on an emergency basis. So for the Rangers, that's good, because once Shesterkin's back, they do want Kincaid in Hartford, because that team is on a roll too. And you don't want to lose Kincaid on waivers. God forbid a team would actually put a claim in if he does go on waivers. No, you want to send him back to Hartford and continue that good performance he's had there. Tonight probably Georgiev, tomorrow probably Kincaid, and then we play the Vegas Golden Knights on Friday.
You think Igor makes his return against Vegas?
I think Igor returns against Vegas. Yes, he was on the ice a couple of days ago already, so he's
been on the ice today as well.
Yeah. So I think he's back against the Vegas Golden Knights on Friday.
Okay.
But
all right.
Look, it's just a guess.
And I think this kind of piggybacks off of what we talked about last episode, because you were kind of under the belief that maybe he could play over the weekend because he would be available. And I said, that could happen, but I just feel like the Rangers aren't going to rush this at all with him unless it's needed. They're not going to, right?
Technically, I said the first moment he can be activated from IR was Saturday.
Yes.
Because he was put on IR on Sunday, and IR is at least seven calendar days. So Saturday was the first possible day they could have activated him back from IR. Wait a couple more days. Let Georgiev play against Colorado. Let Kincaid go against the Arizona Coyotes. Kincaid has played in the NHL before. He was a goalie for the New Jersey.
If there's any game I want Kincaid to be in, it's against Arizona, right?
Yeah. I mean, the Arizona Coyotes. What do the Arizona Coyotes have other than a really, really unfortunate team name? Because if you think about it, their AHL team is called the Roadrunners. But the Roadrunner always wins, right? Why didn't they name their NHL team the Roadrunners? That
Oh my
would make
God,
more
you
sense.
SOB, you're so right. And I love the Coyotes. I love the concept.
Oh,
I
I love
love
the
their
Coyotes.
logo and
I do
everything
too.
too. You're right though.
The Kachina logo is
No
terrific.
wonder they can't get over the damn hump because they got the better team in the AHL. It's all coming full circle now, Steven. It really is.
The pieces fall into place. There you go. But hey, at least they were able to pay their tax bill.
My God, there's truly no one that I feel more sorry for than actual genuine Arizona Coyotes fans.
Oh yes,
This is
yes.
bullshit. Like this
I
is
feel
nothing
terrible.
short of bullshit what they're going through. My apologies for the, amplified profanity in today's episode, but it's justified here. I mean, like it's disgusting. And they're at the point where I don't see how much longer they're going to be in Arizona. That's really something I don't look, and I don't think they're going to go to Quebec. I know everyone's like, "Oh, let's get the Nordiques back." I don't see a world where that's happening, and a
Well,
soon world at
the
least.
reason I don't see it is because I don't think the Canadian economy can support another NHL team. It's that simple.
And okay, and that's
Because
a fair stance.
because over the last 10, 15 years, we've seen it so many times where it's the Canadian teams that need money to come out of the escrow fund to make ends meet almost. And it's all because the Canadian dollar is worth less than the US dollar. So
Yeah.
Canadian teams, it only takes 10 seconds, but for Canadian teams, their revenue is all Canadian, but their expenses are all in US dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So if the Canadian dollar goes down like 5%, that costs those Canadian NHL teams a fortune. And that's unfortunately the downside of having a league with teams from two different countries with two different currencies.
Yep.
I think if the Arizona Coyotes do relocate, there are a couple of cities that are front runners: Houston, Kansas City, and it's gonna sound weird, but Atlanta.
Yeah, I think you're right because those are all marketable areas, especially even I know that maybe Atlanta won't be, a huge hockey town, but it's not like that they haven't been
Well,
there before when you think about the
actually,
Flames.
I spoke to a friend who lives in Atlanta. When the Atlanta Thrashers relocated to Winnipeg in 2011, I think they had 26 hockey leagues in the greater Atlanta area. Now they have over 150.
Yep.
So the hockey culture in Atlanta has grown exponentially in the last 10 years. Of course, if you do want a Canadian team in the NHL, where better to start than in Atlanta, historically.
Yeah.
But
No, again, that's a good point. I wouldn't mind a relocate. I mean, again, all moral of the story to finish this tangent, all we feel bad for is, Arizona fans.
I feel terrible for Arizona Coyotes fans. They trade away Ekman Larson, and then they cannot pay. Well, I'm pretty sure they can pay their tax bill, but something got lost in the mail. Maybe when they relocated, they're maybe they didn't get their mail after they relocated or something.
Yeah.
But
But from there, any final comments you want to make before we get on to answering a couple questions?
Will Juniors, if we can have like a couple of minutes to dive into that.
Yeah, let's talk about our boy Brett Berard. Lead the way on that one for Team USA.
Okay, so World Juniors, we have 5 players playing this season. For Team USA, Brett Berard, of course, he was in my opinion, they're maybe not their best player, but their most outstanding player, most noticeable player last year when they won the gold.
Yeah, he was a buzzsaw, as they like to call him.
Yeah. They've been practicing. He's been playing with Matt Beniers, second overall pick by the Seattle Kraken this summer. Matt Beniers and Brett Berard go way back. They've been friends ever since they're 6 years old. So them playing together is not a surprise at all. He's going to be on the top line for Team USA, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win gold again. For Canada, we have Will Cooley, second round pick last year, and Dylan Garant, 4th-round pick last year. The goalie Dylan Garant and the winger Will Cooley. For the Czech Republic, Jaroslav Chmelars, who was a 5th-round pick this year. It gets a little hazy with the picks in 2021. We had 3 picks in the 4th. Brody Lamb, Talon Boyko, and Kalle Väisänen, who plays for Finland in the World Juniors. And then Chmelars was a 5th-round pick. So Väisänen, Chmelars, Berard, Cooley, and Garant. So 5 players in the World Juniors. It's going to be a lot of fun. Unfortunately, Brendan Othman did not make the cut for Team Canada. But he's young enough that he can play next season. So hopefully he'll be on the World Juniors team next year.
I think the bigger question to ask, and I'm not trying to get into anything in regards to this. I'm just saying that from what we're seeing, because I know how these leagues operate because we've seen it already. As we know that there's been more reported cases coming out with players in the AHL, etc. It unfortunately feels like we may be going down this slippery slope where we may have a stoppage of play or we may not even get Olympics. So, I really hope that isn't the case, obviously. I just know how obviously strict all these different leagues are, and especially when you're getting people from different countries together. All I know is that from how everything's looking right now, how the media is portraying it, and exactly how concerned or unconcerned people should be, regardless of what everyone's viewpoint should be. It doesn't look like this is going in the right direction, and that's unfortunate. So I'm just saying that ahead of time. If we do have ourselves, no Olympics and stuff, that's just going to suck. If we have a stoppage of hockey, that's really going to suck. I hope.
Are you going to survive if we have a stoppage of hockey on top of a strike in baseball?
No.
Are you going to survive that?
No.
What
I'm barely surviving as it is.
What are you going to do with your life then? You're going to watch movies?
I do watch movies. I would make more time for my movies.
Become a movie critic? What else are you going to
do? Yeah, I might as well become a movie critic.
Oh, right. Speaking of, okay, so quick before we go on to the questions. I'm from the Netherlands, right?
Yes.
Last Sunday, biggest sports moment in the history of my country, probably.
Oh, was it NASCAR?
No, Formula One.
Oh, okay. I knew it had to do with racing. Yeah. I'm not buff on that front.
Yeah. Max Verstappen winning the world championship in Formula One. When 5 years ago we didn't even have a Dutch racer winning a single Grand Prix.
Wow! Tip the cap to you. That's pretty crazy.
He started at age 17 with Red Bull's secondary team, Toro Rosso, and last Sunday he won the world championship for Red Bull. Amazing achievement, and as a Dutchman, I couldn't be happier because this is one of those moments that I don't forget. The sports my country's really good at.
No.
Speed skating at the Winter Olympics. When the Winter Olympics started, the first week, you should look at the medal count the first week. Netherlands is always up there because we win gold, silver, and bronze in every distance when it comes to speed skating.
Is it normally cold more often than not in the Netherlands?
Well, yeah, it's cold, but skating is a tradition in the Netherlands. Everyone knows how to skate except me. But
and that's why you live in Dublin.
That's why I live in Dublin now. No, but skating is popular. Hockey or ice hockey is not popular, which I never understood. I could never really explain the difference between the two. Why is one so popular in my country and the other one is basically non-existent?
Yep.
But yeah, great moment for Dutch sports, and just wanted to give that a quick shout out before we move on to questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, shout out Netherlands again. I'm happy for you. That's a very, very awesome accomplishment indeed. So yeah, folks, we'll be answering questions now for 5 to 10 minutes before we wrap things up and talk about the next week of games for the Rangers before we're back here for another episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed at this point, whether you're watching live or on replay, wherever you get your podcast. Know that we always appreciate your support here at Rangers Review, episode 41. Steven, you actually want to ask, you actually want to answer the history of 41 before the end of the episode? Because we don't intentionally do that. And I think people might think we intentionally do that, but we don't. I just always forget the episode number until we're like in the final stages.
There's only 8 players who played with number 41 for the New York Rangers.
Okay.
Can you name at least one?
Oh, dude, I don't know why I thought Stu Bickle right away, but I think he might have been 42.
Well, Stu Bickle was the most recent one. Yeah. Stu
Oh,
Bickle.
there you go. I'll take that.
Stu Bickle, Jet Ortmeyer, Peter Fiorentino, Rudy Poshek, Simon Wheeldon, Mike Siltala, Steve Richmond, and the first player to wear number 41 as a Ranger in 1982-83 was Eddie Mio.
Okay. I got one. I'll take that to the bank any day of the week.
It's the only time Stu Bickle is relevant in 2021.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, all I think about Stu Bickle is being a forward and a defenseman. He was the Brendan Smith before the Brendan Smith.
Oh no! When I think of Stu Bickle, I cannot help but think of that game in the playoffs where he played like 4 minutes and he was
yes,
and the game went to overtime, and the camera zooms in on his face, and he looks like the saddest puppy in the world.
That was with Tortorella, so that makes sense.
Yeah. Speaking of Stu Bickle, he's only 35. Jeez, I'm older than Stu Bickle. Jeez. Anyway, he is the assistant coach for the Springfield Thunderbirds in the AHL.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, shout out to Stu Bickle. Yeah. But okay, we got some questions that we'll answer. Let's get to them. Not a lot. We'll just answer a couple. Let's see. Does Laffy need to better players around him to break out? Good question. Good question. And I would say, yeah, yes and no. I think with Laffy more than anything, it's really just a consistent ice time thing and a confidence thing because Hedl and Gauthier, they have those talents. And I will say, however, that I do expect Lafreniere to have better point production when he's in the top 6 versus not. So I don't think it hurts his chances of becoming a better player if he plays alongside the Zibanejad, the Kreiders of the world, or the Panarins, right? So I don't think it hurts. So I would agree with you on that stance. I do think, however, that he could potentially get more production still out of that third line if he gets more ice time. Naturally, when you get more abilities on the ice, odds are something may happen. Same thing with special teams as well. Laffy doesn't get much special teams ability either. I think that would benefit him, especially for a Rangers team that's clearly been clicking on the power play. So throw him in there, help build his confidence a bit. I would appreciate. But more than anything, I just want more ice time out of him. The reason why we haven't talked about it much in previous episodes is that, nothing's been changing. And I understand that. I understand Gallant's thought process, and I just also understand the thought process behind myself, someone that wants your first overall draft pick to be given every opportunity known to man to succeed. So I understand both sides of the coin.
Yeah, look, something needs to happen because with just even strength minutes on the third line, it's not going to happen. And he's playing with Julien Gauthier, who's making things happen, but not at a level where, remember in 2013-14, we went to the Cup final and our third line was Benoit Pouliot, Derek Brassard, and Matt Zuccarello?
Yes.
If you put Lafreniere on a line with Derek Brassard and Matt Zuccarello from 2013-14, I guarantee you he hits 50 points. But he's on a line with Philip Hedl, who has been very underwhelming this season. And I hate to say it, but he looks like he's regressing.
I wouldn't go there to say that I think he's looking regressing.
Well, I mean, he's not improving. And I think Philip Hedl was a better player last season than he is this season so far. And then you have Julien Gauthier, who hasn't even played 70 NHL games yet. So it's a tough line to make something happen. What bothers me more is that the shakeup with the lines that Gallant did hasn't worked out at all. You had Kakko with Panarin and Strome, and he was on a tear where he had 8 points in 7 games. And then Sammy Blais goes out, so you move Kakko up and you replace him with Dryden Hunt, which worked for a couple of games. But Dryden Hunt hasn't played that well either on that second line the last couple of games. Yeah. So why not try Lafreniere on Panarin's line? You have to try something with this kid because it's just not working. And most important, we need to stop having 4 right-handed shots on the first power play unit. Because the biggest issue, and Joe Micheletti actually mentioned it in the Nashville game, the biggest issue is when you have a right-handed shot on the right circle,
Yes.
the puck takes too long to get to your stick.
How many times have I said this?
Yeah. No, but Joe Micheletti mentioned it on the broadcast. He literally said during the broadcast, if that's a left-handed shot, that's a goal. And then he goes, when you're a right-handed shot, the puck needs a fraction of a second longer to get to your stick blade. He explained it so the average fan watching TV
Love that.
Can understand.
I'm glad because it's easy to kind of break things down in depth and maybe the fan isn't understanding the terminology you're using, but I'm glad to see that he utilize that because it's important. Like it's little things like that that are great, and not just from Micheletti's breakdown, but also Steve Alcat. Just what a fantastic job he obviously always does, and breaking down everything and anything and everything regarding the ins and outs of a goaltender.
Yeah,
But
and I know there are people that don't like Joe Micheletti, and I don't want to get into all that, but in this instance, he was dead on. He was right. He called it out. It needs to change. Put Lafreniere there, and takes advantage off that first power play unit. Let Strome take the face-offs. Let Strome play in the middle. Kreider still in front of the goalie, screening. And they have Panarin on the left, Lafreniere on the right, and Fox on the blue line. That's what I would do. And then you have Zibanejad taking the draws on the second unit.
Yeah, no, I think that would be awesome to get more balance, especially with Zibanejad, because it's not like you're relying on him in the left dot on power play number 1.
Our power play, as successful as it is, reminds me a lot of the 2013 season after the lockout.
Okay.
Where John Tortorella basically fabricated a super line with Nash, Richards, and Gaborik, and it never worked.
Yeah.
And Panarin, Zibanejad, and Kreider, it works on the power play, but you have a man advantage. You're supposed to score on the power play.
And think about how many of those goals, it seems like it's either Panarin in the left dot, or it's potentially Kreider in front more often than not, or at times it has been in recent games Ryan Strome in the right dot that's able to get enough time for an open net shot. Very little am I seeing Zibanejad being a ginormous factor in there, even though I know he just had a power play goal recently.
Yeah, I know. And it's not that the power play isn't working. I just think that you can better balance it.
Yes, I agree with that.
I don't think it's going to happen. I think Galant's just going to stick with what he has.
I think so too.
Just like he's going to stick with Nemeth on the third pair.
Yep.
And things are not going to change on defense unless someone is out with injury or illness. We won't see any changes anytime soon. But more and more, I'm starting to understand. I'm starting to understand the frustration of the players on the ice too, because against the Predators, you can tell players were frustrated when the final 5 minutes of the game. You go. It's basically the hockey equivalent of going all in with poker. You put your best players out there, but then when you don't score after 2 minutes, you have nothing left. If you don't score there, then your best players are going to sit on the bench for a minute and a half when you only have 3 minutes left. So I'm never really a fan of just putting your best players together. It just doesn't work.
No,
anyway,
I agree with you. But I do say we're running short on time, so I wanted to get us to answer one more question.
Yeah, sure.
It's a great question from our boy Aces at the Other Great Rangers channel. Did you do your video with them yet, or are you going to regarding prospects?
No, we're gonna try and do that later this week. We haven't set a date yet because we need Mark to not to moderate it, but he's the technical guy, so he can.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I'm
looking forward to checking that out. But shout out to you, my friend. But great question here. Let's see. Trivia: 5 players in the history of the NHL that have scored 90+ points and have won the Selkie in the same season. Okay, I got 3 on the bat that I feel somewhat to really comfortable with, and then I'll ask if you feel, because first person that comes to my mind is Pavel Datsyuk. He's got to be one.
I've had this conversation already with him.
Oh, okay. Well, then you don't answer it.
I just don't remember. I just don't remember the 5 players.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go with Datsyuk. Then I'm thinking Patrice Bergeron has to have at least 190 in there. Jonathan Toews. Like, those are the first 3 people I always think of with Selkie.
Okay.
Let's see. I don't know. Other 2 more, I don't really.
That has to be like a really weird one, like Ron Francis or something. I remember there was a really weird one that I just wouldn't have expected.
Did Brind'Amour ever crack 90?
No, I don't think so.
Kopitar.
Or was it?
No, I don't think Kopitar cracked 90.
Was it Gilmore, Kessler? Maybe, I don't know. I don't remember the answers. I remember going through this, like it was like a year ago.
Okay, all right. Well, I got one, Datsyuk. Who are the other 2? Let us know as we're doing this live right now. I mean, who are the other 4? I should say. Datsyuk's the only one I could think of off the top of my head without doing any research. Okay, well, as we await that to find out, let's kind of pivot to the upcoming schedule, shall we? To wrap things up here, because Rangers have an interesting schedule. Again, back-to-back games starting tonight at the time of recording this. If you're catching the episode by time before you listen, check out the late game against Colorado, which is at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Check it out on ESPN Plus. I know that's frustrating to some that don't have ESPN Plus. I can completely understand that wholeheartedly.
Before we can I quickly chime in on that for about 30 seconds?
About streaming?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think people understand how many fans do not stream. You know, yes, we as a younger audience, we know how to stream. You know, we stream Netflix on our laptops, and you know, we have smart TVs where everything's set up. The large majority of Ranger fans just watch the Rangers on TV, and that's all they do. You know, when I look at my fiance's mom, she watches the Rangers on the same couch every time, on the same TV, on MSG or MSG Plus or MSG2 or whatever their other channels are called, or in the past on NBC or NBCSN. NBC, yeah. I don't expect people over the age of 40 to well, I'm getting there. I should be careful what I say now. I don't expect people over the age of 40 to, you know, to go out of their way to pay for an extra streaming service just to see a couple more games in a season.
No, you're right. The average fan probably isn't doing that.
I don't agree with the way the Rangers, for once, the Rangers didn't fuck up. I don't agree with how the NHL and ESPN have handled this at all.
You know why? You know why though? It's again that ESPN effect, because one, they're trying to pump out to make sure that you're being acknowledging their streaming service. Same thing with Disney Plus, because they're connected. They want everyone on. We're going to be living in a world over the next decade where there is no television. It's only streaming services. We're already very advanced in that aspect, watching live games.
Yeah, but you need
I agree. It won't be surprising if there's a lack of viewership, at least to start out, because a lot of people aren't going to sign up for that. They're just not going to.
A transition period. A couple of years ago, there was a country in Europe where they made public transportation free for people over 65. Now, instead of letting, because they were introducing a new card system, and the cards were very complicated. Instead of forcing old people to use the new card system, they allowed people 50 and older to use the old system where, you know, with like the paper cards where you had to stamp it.
Yeah.
It's a 15-year transition period. And after 15 years, everyone who was using the old system can use public transportation for free. They used a 15-year transition period. And then afterwards, it was a seamless transition. Now, I know it's not really, maybe not a good comparison, but the NHL and ESPN should have done something to make it easier to transition for people. Because now you have people that are unable to watch the games.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And hopefully they can maybe try to adopt something
There's
that can make
there's
it more of a
there's
smooth
a
transition.
there's a Modern Family episode. Have you watched Modern Family?
Yeah.
There's a Modern Family episode where Jay, the guy who played what's his name, Ed O'Neill.
Okay.
He meets like this other old guy, and they talk about Netflix. And he goes, "Oh, have you heard about Netflix? Great. You go on their website, you select a movie, and then 2 days later, they drop it off, and you can watch the movie. You can put the DVD in your DVD player, and then and then there's
That's how Netflix used to be.
and then there's a follow-up scene where the older guy goes, "Geez, does this guy not know how to stream?" And
Yeah.
sorry, I had to think of that when you mentioned that, but yeah. Let's move on to the game predictions, I guess. Let me get
Yeah. Let's go on to game predict. You're right, though. I remember like it was yesterday. I was a kid, and my neighbors, especially her parents, would get the Netflix in the mail. I'm like, that's so. I was like, what is that? I'm like, that's insane.
First time I was in the US, I went to I think Best Buy, and there was this red sort of like a vending machine outside, and it
Yeah, you're
was
like, what?
literally
What
called,
the hell's that?
it was literally called Red Box. And I'm like, what's this? Well, it's movies. Oh, you have a vending machine for movies?
Yeah,
Yeah,
why
you have
not?
to return, but then you have to return them.
Yep.
Anyway,
All right. I do want to answer Aces did say the other four players are Fedorov, Gilmore, the only two to score 100 in the same season. Kopitar, so I did get that right. And Troy Murray in 1986 for the other four besides Datsuk.
uh,
So
Troy Murray. Troy Murray was the obscure one that yeah. I vaguely remember the conversation.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But let's get into the upcoming games, though, as I said. Okay, so Rangers again tonight, Colorado. Tomorrow, the 15th, Arizona. Then the 17th, Vegas. And I'm going to probably say we won't talk again until potentially. Oh, shoot. I think Thursday next week could actually be comfortable, right before the holidays. So let's bank for Thursday as of now, so that they get the Montreal game in too. So that's 4 games, right? So 4 games coming up for the Rangers. I am going to have my boldest take so far this season, and I think the Rangers are going 4-0. I don't feel
Oh,
confident about it, but
easy
I'm throwing that
win.
out there. I'm putting the championship on the line like crazy. And I think that they're going to score a minimum over that 4 game span of at least 16 goals. So I think we got high scoring over the span. And I think the Rangers win every game. And I think I'm going to regret this just a couple hours after saying this,
Oh,
but we're
easy
going
money.
in.
Easy money. Okay, so I'm gonna go.
Sometimes you got to have fun with it, you know?
Yeah, of course, of course. I'm not gonna go 0-4 because I'm not that petty. Um, let's see. So Colorado and Arizona. I think I'm gonna split that. So 1-1. I'm gonna go with 1, 2, and 1. How many goals did you predict?
16.
I'm gonna go with 15. Easy money. Anyway, done.
If I win this, though, I feel like I should get 2 belts.
If you win this, I might not show up next Thursday.
But it's nothing to be upset about. You'll just be like, damn, like I'm pleasantly
I mean,
surprised.
if you get this right, then kudos. Then props to you if you do. If this team goes 4-0 after the last week, I mean, I would want nothing more than for this team to go 4-0 and score 16 goals in the process. Sign me up.
Sign me up too. And that's why we're riding with it, right?
I'm
But
trying to win the belt back though, so
okay, well, we'll see about that one. We'll meet up later next week. But that'll wrap things up for this episode 41 of Rangers Review. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Make sure to leave us a great review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like I said, we'll be continuing to rebrand that. Long overdue, but we are finally getting things in the works, which I'm happy about. So, again, thank you all so much, everyone that chimed in live on replay, all those great things. And stay tuned later next week for hopefully a new episode after these 4 upcoming games. And hopefully we get a couple good games for the Rangers during that span. So, thank you again, folks. Really, really appreciate everyone. And as always, Steven, let's go Rangers.
let's go Rangers.